A driver left a comment highlighting the effects of sugar on our brains. He said, "Sugar consumption is a problem, but the real diabolical thing about HFCS is that it blocks the receptors in your brain which tell you when you're full." And he also stated that HFCS is banned in many countries. You can find the rest of what he said in our comment section, under at Runner's Keeper. Very interesting driver, and thank you for your comment. And yes, it has been noted that high sugar consumption suppresses a vital protein called brain-derived neurotrophic factor, or BDNF. This protein supports brain plasticity, the ability to form new memories and learn. Low BDNF levels have been found in people with depression and schizophrenia. We will go over more of this later. HFCS may also block the receptors in your brain that tells you when you're full, leading to overeating and weight gain, which further stresses the brain and the body. Research suggests that high fructose corn syrup does not activate leptin, the hormone responsible for signaling satiety, the way glucose does. Drivers, to make that matter even worse, HFCS is banned or heavily restricted in many countries, including the UK, part of Europe, and Japan. Yet, in the United States, it is still a key ingredient in many processed foods. Sugar is everywhere in our modern world. It is not just in the cakes and candies we see in store windows. It hides in places you might not expect. You can find it in your morning cereal, your favorite bread, and even in savory sauces like ketchup or pasta sauce. This widespread presence makes it a hidden danger right in plain sight. While we often think about sugar's effect on our waistline or our risk for diabetes, we rarely consider its impact on our most vital organ, the brain. The constant exposure to high levels of sugar is quietly creating a health crisis that affects our ability to think, learn, and remember. It is a slow, silent process, but the damage can be significant over time. This hidden threat comes in many forms. We see cane sugar, high fructose corn syrup, and even honey or agave nectar. The food industry uses these sweeteners to make products more appealing to our taste buds. The problem is that our brains were not designed to handle such a large and constant supply of sugar. In our evolutionary past, sweetness was a rare treat, signaling ripe fruit. Today, it is a daily, often hourly occurrence. This constant flood of sweetness can overwhelm our brain's natural systems, leading to a cascade of negative effects that compromise our cognitive health and long-term well-being. It is a modern problem born from an ancient craving. Children's developing brains are particularly vulnerable to this sweet onslaught. Their neural pathways are still forming, and their ability to regulate impulses is not yet fully mature. When a child consumes a high-sugar diet, it can have profound effects on their ability to learn and manage their behavior. Studies have shown that excessive sugar intake can lead to difficulties with attention, hyperactivity, and poor academic performance. It can also cause dramatic mood swings, making it harder for children and young adults to navigate social situations and regulate their emotions. We are essentially setting up the next generation for cognitive challenges by normalizing high-sugar foods from a young age. This is why understanding the different names for sugar is so important. Labels can be confusing, listing ingredients like dextrose, maltose, or fruit juice concentrate. These are all forms of sugar that the brain processes in a similar way. Whether it is labeled natural or organic does not change the fundamental impact it has on our neural chemistry when consumed in large quantities. Our bodies and brains do not distinguish between the sugar from a soda and the sugar from a large glass of fruit juice. The key is the amount and frequency. Recognizing this is the first step toward taking control of what we are putting into our bodies and ultimately, our brains. One of the most concerning ways sugar affects the brain is by weakening our memory and learning capabilities. Your brain cells, or neurons, communicate with each other through tiny connections called synapses. For learning and memory to work well, these connections must be strong and efficient. High sugar consumption disrupts this delicate process. It interferes with the signaling between neurons, making it harder for them to communicate effectively. Think of it like trying to have a clear conversation in a very noisy room. The important messages get lost, and as a result, forming new memories and recalling old ones becomes a much more difficult task for the brain to accomplish. This disruption can also lead to serious issues with mood regulation. The brain relies on a steady supply of energy to function correctly. When you eat a lot of sugar, you get a quick spike in blood glucose, followed by a sharp crash. This roller coaster of energy levels directly impacts your mood. The initial high might feel good, but the subsequent crash can leave you feeling irritable, anxious, or even depressed. This cycle can become addictive. Your brain starts to crave that next sugar hit to escape the low, creating a dependency that is hard to break and can contribute to long-term mental health challenges if not addressed properly. The addictive nature of sugar is a real and powerful force. When we eat sugar, the brain releases dopamine, a neurotransmitter associated with pleasure and reward. This is the same chemical released by addictive substances. Over time, the brain starts to require more and more sugar to get that same feeling of pleasure. This is a classic sign of addiction. The cravings become intense, and trying to cut back can lead to withdrawal-like symptoms, such as headaches, fatigue, and moodiness. This powerful cycle explains why so many people struggle to reduce their sugar intake, even when they know it is not good for their health. Furthermore, this constant pursuit of a sugar high disrupts the brain's natural reward system. It teaches the brain to prioritize short-term pleasure over long-term well-being. This can affect decision-making and impulse control, making it harder to stick to healthy habits. The brain becomes wired for immediate gratification, which can spill over into other areas of life. Protecting our cognitive function means breaking this cycle. We must retrain our brains to find rewards in other healthier sources, moving away from the empty promises of a sugary treat and toward a more stable and resilient mental state. When we consume too much sugar, it triggers a harmful process in the body called inflammation. While short-term inflammation is a normal part of the healing process, chronic inflammation is damaging. A high-sugar diet is a major contributor to this chronic state. This inflammation does not just affect our joints or our heart, it also affects our brain. Brain inflammation, or neuroinflammation, is increasingly being linked to a wide range of cognitive problems. It can damage brain cells and interfere with their ability to function, leading to symptoms we often call brain fog, a feeling of mental slowness, confusion, and difficulty concentrating on tasks. This chronic inflammation is a key suspect in the development of serious neurodegenerative diseases. Conditions like depression and dementia, including Alzheimer's disease, are now strongly associated with neuroinflammation. The inflammatory molecules produced in response to high sugar can cross the blood-brain barrier, a protective shield that normally keeps harmful substances out of the brain. Once inside, these molecules can wreak havoc, contributing to the cellular damage that underlies these devastating conditions. Reducing sugar is therefore not just about managing weight, it is a critical step in protecting the brain from this inflammatory assault. Another way sugar harms the brain is by blocking a vital protein called brain-derived neurotrophic factor, or BDNF. We spoke on this earlier in the video. You can think of BDNF as a kind of fertilizer for your brain cells. It is essential for the growth of new neurons, their survival, and the forming of strong synaptic connections. BDNF plays a crucial role in learning, memory, mental sharpness, and higher-level thinking. BDNF helps the brain to adapt and learn. This is neuroplasticity. When you learn new skills like how to operate an 18-wheeler safely, BDNF is at work building connections that will enable you to problem solve, focus, improving your overall cognitive performance, all the while creating and forming new memory pathways. If a person is recovering from a brain injury, BDNF is at work behind the scenes, promoting the survival of neuronal populations that are mostly in the central nervous system, contributing to the neuronal responses and regulations of intrinsic neuronal excitability. Unfortunately, diets high in sugar have been shown to significantly reduce the levels of BDNF in the brain. Without enough of this critical protein, our brains struggle to form new memories and adapt to new information, leading to a noticeable decline in cognitive flexibility and performance. This blockade of BDNF has profound implications for our long-term brain health. Low levels of BDNF are consistently found in individuals with Alzheimer's disease, depression, and other neurological disorders, like post-traumatic stress disorder or PTSD. By constantly consuming sugar, we are actively suppressing our brain's natural ability to repair itself and grow. It is like trying to build a house without enough bricks and mortar. The structure will inevitably be weak and unstable. To keep our brains sharp and resilient as we age, we must create an environment where BDNF can flourish, and that starts with cutting down on the sugar that actively works against it. One of the most dangerous long-term consequences of a high-sugar diet is the development of insulin resistance in the brain. We usually associate insulin with blood sugar control in the body, but it also plays a critical role in brain function, including memory formation. When we eat too much sugar, our cells can become resistant to insulin signals. This same resistance can happen in the brain. When brain cells become insulin resistant, they cannot take in the glucose they need for energy. This starves the brain of its primary fuel source and severely impairs cognitive processes, especially memory. This condition is so serious that some scientists have started referring to Alzheimer's disease as type 3 diabetes. The link is becoming increasingly clear. Insulin resistance in the brain is a major risk factor for memory loss and dementia. It disrupts communication between neurons and contributes to the buildup of toxic proteins like amyloid plaques, which are hallmarks of Alzheimer's disease. Protecting our future cognitive health requires us to maintain insulin sensitivity in our brains. The most direct way to do this is by significantly reducing our consumption of sugar and refined carbohydrates that cause sharp spikes in blood glucose. The message is simple. We must be vigilant about sugar. This means looking beyond the obvious culprits and becoming a detective when reading food labels. Sugar hides under many different names and is added to an incredible number of processed foods, from salad dressings to frozen dinners. We need to actively seek out and reduce these hidden sugars in our diet. Choosing whole, unprocessed foods like vegetables, lean proteins, and healthy fats is the best strategy. This approach nourishes the brain with the nutrients it needs to thrive, rather than flooding it with a substance that causes inflammation, disrupts communication, and blocks growth. Ultimately, what we feed our bodies, we feed our brains. The choices we make at every meal have a direct and lasting impact on our cognitive vitality. It is not about eliminating every last gram of sugar, but about making a conscious and consistent effort to reduce it. Think of it as an investment in your future self, an investment in a mind that remains sharp, clear, and resilient for years to come. Your brain is your most precious asset. Protect it with the same care and attention you would give to any other vital part of your health. The power to build a healthier brain is on your plate. Thank you once again, driver, for your comment. And as always, stay safe.